She's chasing him, looking at his hands. The hands are what kill you. No gun in his hands as he's running. He spins and stuffs a pistol up under her armpit, shoots her above the vest. That bullet goes through, breaks through his ribs, breaks that artery, hits her in the T2 vertebrae, and cuts her spinal cord. I looked at her, and she was sheet white, no blue in her eyes, completely dilated. Next thing you know, we're all in the trauma room, and I'm wedged in this little corner, and the thing on the wall's going, no pulse detected. And I want to say that that's my wife.
Can you explain what my producer's wearing there?
That is AU Fire, which is short for accuracy under fire. And it's a gunshot wound simulator that I created. And it actually was created out of a tragedy at LAPD, which we'll talk about. But it interesting enough, there's really not that many products out there that simulate getting hit by gunfire.
Why?
You just can't shoot at somebody in training, right? And it's kind of left up to officers to, they're kind of out there with a hope and a prayer that when it happens, that they're going to pull through. They're going to be able to pull their inner Rambo out and fight back accurately and effectively when they've been shot and they're under attack.
Yeah. But before we dive all the way into it, let me just tell you that from my perspective, you're here because I got a front row seat to a lot of this stuff in the Dirty Jobs days. The 100th job, we went to Fort Bragg and went through all their training exercises, and I did similar things with similar branches, and I've always been interested in this. And then, Gavin came on this podcast, Gavin DeBecker. Listeners will know him as the guy that started one of the premier personal service protection organizations in the country. And so when I heard about what you had done, I immediately called Gavin, and Gavin was like, "Oh, we're in touch, and we're going to place an order." Yeah. So that's what got my attention. If you've got him super interested in this, then I think it's something that the country probably needs to know about. A lot of people are doing a lot of really important work in your space, but I ain't seen nothing like this.
Yeah, it does not exist. I was surprised when I got into the police academy in 1996. I was a construction worker before that with Department of Water and Power. I actually took a year off from Water and Power, and I went and moved over to Hawaii and was doing construction there on Oahu. Every day after work, I would body surf at this beach called Sandy Beach. World-class body surfing beach. Really dangerous and a lot of fun. And I would hit it 5 days a week. Several of those days I was out there, I made a couple little, like micro rescues, where I'm just watching somebody, and if they were getting, a lot of tourists, when you come out of Waikiki Beach and you head down the coast, Sandy Beach is like one of the first ones that looks accessible. And so they pull in the parking lot and they go jump in the water with their rental boogie boards, and they're out there in the mix. And so if you're not paying attention, you can get sucked down into the lava field down there, right? They call it gas chambers. So I would swim out and tell people, hey, you better move up the beach, And sometimes I would look down, and the lifeguards are reading their paper or whatever, and I think sometimes they don't care if the tourists get, smashed. So
teachable moment.
Exactly.
That's how you thin the herd.
So one day I'm sitting on the beach, I'm like, why do I care?
So this is interesting by way of backstory. You're a body surfer, and I assume you surf too, but your story is body surfing, and you're a self-appointed lifeguard because you look around and the lifeguard's reading his newspaper or taking a nap, and you see people who aren't even in distress, but something in the reptilian part of your brain says, I don't know, I think they're in trouble.
I got back to LA, and then I was sitting in traffic, and I was looking at this motor cop, and I was like, okay, his job is indoors, it's outdoors, it's mental, it's physical. I had some martial arts background, so I was a little bit scrappy. I'm like, I could probably do that part. And I knew I didn't need a college degree to be a cop, and I knew I could make a livable, wage at that. I'm actually not, I guess the cop type where rules, they're suggestions usually. I'm kind of cowboyish, I guess. But ultimately, I end up getting into LAPD. And I show up there, and when we have Black Line Monday, 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody lines up. They had a 2-week lead class with the females. And so This woman was sent out there to get us all in order and get us up into the building, and she looked miserable. I remember standing there looking at her going, who is this grumpy chick? Right? Who she thinks she is? and the next thought was not, I'm going to marry that girl. But I did.
Wow. No, that's there's a lot of distance between those 2 points. Tell me about her.
So her name was Kristina Ripatti, and we had a big class, 120-something people. LAPD was recruiting real heavily back then. And she was in a different squad, so I didn't really know her, but I knew she had a great reputation.
For context, this is pre Rodney King.
Yeah.
Right.
No, right after.
Right after.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you buried that lead too then, didn't you? You went and joined the LAPD at a time when the LAPD was probably not the wish fulfillment or the aspiration of a lot of people.
You know, it's interesting is people were telling me back then when I would tell them that, hey, I want to be a cop, they're like, man, you don't want to do that. This place has changed. The job is ruined. It's terrible conditions. And I really thought about it because had I listened to them, I would have missed out on an amazing career and the amazing people I met. It just sent me on this trajectory that is incredible and I'm proud of.
Well, I say a lot because we've had more than a few cops on this show, and I kind of maybe now somewhat glibly say I can't remember a tougher time to be a cop than right now, but maybe then. So what's your take on all of it?
It was a tough time to be a cop, no doubt. Like when I got to Southeast Division, we were running about 80 to 90 murders a year in basically 5 square miles.
So we're talking, this is South Central.
Yeah. When you get out of the academy, you go to your first division where you get trained with a training officer out in the field every day. Where did I end up? Skid Row. Skid Row, walking a foot beat, basically the graveyard shift. And that was interesting. You'd be on 6th and San Julian. There'd be 300 people in the intersection. It was like a casting call for Thriller. Just zombies everywhere. And they would and because you're in uniform, you're standing there, and they would just come around you and split like the Red Sea. And you just had this front row view of what this was. It's all mental illness. It's all drug addiction. It's homeless. And it was thick back then. So I do probation there, and then I wheel out and go to Southwest Division, which is like the Crenshaw District, mm-hmm. just west of USC, over to the Crenshaw Mall, out to La Cienega, Vernon up to the 10 freeway, right? And that is like a middle-class area, but highly infiltrated with gangs. So it's interesting. You'll end up in a house chasing a guy, a gangster, and mom works for the DMV. Sister works for Water and Power, great, jobs and everything, but brother is a full-on hardcore Crip or Blood or whatever.
And that's, back then it was the Crips and the Bloods. Those were basically the split bill. Yep.
And that's where I met back up with Kristina. We actually got partnered in patrol. And at that time, this is our first year on the job as new officers on our own. And I remember she had already a great reputation, and when this watch commander read off our names being assigned together in roll call, I remember thinking, oh no,
not this one.
Yeah,
this one, I remember her.
Yeah, she's
cranky.
Cranky, and she's going to make me look horrible, right? She's so much better, right?
Right.
So I'm nervous, and we get in the car, and usually there's a little discussion. And, all right, this is where I keep my backup. This is what I have, blah, 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 in case something happens. And there's this little thing you do. And we pull out of the station, and immediately we see this car full of gangsters, and we go after it, and we pull them over, and it gets heated quick. I kind of lost my cool, and I'm thinking, already, right off the bat, I already screwed up, and she's going to judge me. I get back in the car, she starts cracking jokes, and I'm like, oh my God, this girl's kind of cool, right? So, and it turns out we end up being on the same the exact same page with law enforcement, and we really wanted to get into the crash units. And so we were just working hard, and they actually were starting to talk to us, recognizing that we were doing good work out there.
Why were they called crash units?
It was Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums. It was, yeah.
I knew it had to be an acronym.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you're just going to, we'll call them crash units.
Yeah. Cool name.
Yeah, interesting.
So, working patrol, she was my patrol partner for, I want to say, almost 2 years. And then we had a third partner on the car, and Phil Cuesta was murdered by 18th Street. Phil Cuesta was one of the crash officers. And responded to that, and one of the craziest scenes I've ever been on. Nicest guy. I remember I would pass him in the locker room, and I remember always looking at him. I'm a new officer, so he's a crash guy, so you don't say anything, you don't talk to him really. And it's like, I got to meet him. I got to say hi to him. Seems like such a nice guy. The next week he was dead.
Oh.
When they opened up his spot in the unit, they pulled Kristina and I into the crash unit. And we started working the Rolling 30s Harlem Crips, 40 years plus of entrenchment. And we went at it hard with those guys. But it's not like you're not coming out there with a big stick, like you're the boss. You can't, they'll eat you up. There's a game to play. You have to feign respect and all that kind of stuff. But we got them with a lot of felonies. They put hits out on us, Kristina especially.
Hits that are widely recognized among one gang, both gangs? Like, do you guys pose an existential threat to the whole ecosystem? Or do you get, can you be friendly with the Bloods but not the Crips as a cop? It just doesn't work that way.
No. You have relationships with these guys. There's some there, it's always going to be locking horns no matter what. There's no changing that. There's some that will play the respect game. And there's a lot of them that they're real characters, and there's a lot of really smart ones. And you develop these relationships with them, and they understand the game. So their job is to try to get away. Our job is to try to catch them, right? Sometimes they win, sometimes we win. And so you'll have some that as soon as you pat them down, you can sit there and have a conversation with them regularly. That's our job. Get to know them. Know who they are. Know what their MO is. If they're on probation or parole, know their tattoos. Know who they hang with. What cars they drive, who their baby's mamas are, who their mamas are, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like a reservoir of intelligence, because when they go do a crime in another city, and there's some kind of clue bringing back there, we're the ones that are going to identify him. Oh, we know him. We know that tattoo. We know that car. We know those guys. So that's your job. And it turned out to be a lot of fun, and it turned out to be a perfect job for me. I really enjoyed it, and I got good at it. Which is strange because I hate conflict.
Yeah.
I'll do anything to avoid conflict. I've been that way my whole life.
But to be drawn to it at the same time, that's the thing that's interesting. And speaking of interesting, you've used that word 3 times now at least. Once to describe the transition, I would imagine, from going from paradise, where you're body surfing, into Skid Row, right? You're standing there as the crowd sort of parts around you because you're in uniform, and you described that whole moment as an interesting moment. Mm-hmm. Most people would go with any number of other descriptors, mm-hmm. right, all day long. Mm-hmm. So it's always interesting. Why are you attracted to this cranky woman? That's interesting. Oh, that's kind of interesting. It really is kind of interesting, too, why you would go out to rescue somebody who doesn't appear to be in trouble. So I'm just taking a mental inventory of the things that you'll do anything to avoid conflict, but you go out of your way to join the one police force in the country with the biggest black eye at a time in history when it was probably the blackest. Dude, that's interesting. But please go ahead.
I remember my thought process when I got on the job. I was scared. I remember one of my early traffic stops. These were 4 gangsters in a van. This was when I was on probation. We're on the I think it was this 4th Street bridge going across the LA River. We had stopped them there. We're under street lights, like 2 a.m, And we got him at gunpoint, and I remember seeing my badge shaking on my my chest, right? And I'm like, calm down, like, get it together. But it was just rattling on my chest. You know
how hard your heart has to be beating to make your badge rattle?
And I ended up realizing I didn't want to deal with normal people problems. I wanted when you snatched a gangster with a pistol, some kind of felony, and you walked them into the station, your peers were like, "Hey, nice job." Your supervisor was like, "Nice job." The neighbors, the good neighbors, are like, "Nice job." You know that's what's going on. They just can't say it. Mm-hmm. So there's like no downside to it, other than the drama you got to put up with to get to that arrest.
And it's worth pointing out that they can't say it because these people in the area you've described are literally trapped in their homes.
You see that all the time. So, because look, if you call the police and they find out, your kids are going to get just hammered going to school. They're going to get hammered at school, to and from. These guys will show up at your house when you move in, show you a pistol, say, anything happens around on this block, you come to me first. Like, this is my block, that kind of stuff. We've seen where somebody's moved in, pulled the U-Haul up, and 30, 40 people descend on the U-Haul, strip it clean, and take off into the wind. And the neighbors will be like, just welcome them to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So if you're an outsider, you better stay in the house. Actually, it's where AU Fire comes into play because a couple things have happened. Police training to save money, keep people on the streets, has turned into PowerPoint training, right?
Theory.
All the shooting days, all the tactics days, all that stuff's pretty much gone. Very, very little. People assume that we get a lot of training as police officers, and we don't. As an officer in training, you're practicing overriding your self-preservation instinct for when that day comes, right? PowerPoints do not do that. So Uvalde happens, and they're faced with rifle fire in a small confined area, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't sign up for this," or they don't have that practice of overriding and sacrificing yourself for the greater good. And then we have George Floyd happen and the riots, and so we have officers leaving the business like this. We have violence going like this. We have an economy that's going to be going like this. So we're going to have less officers and much more violence. And that's not going to turn around for 20 years. You have to be taught how to be a proactive officer. You have to have other officers who've been doing it, who've muscled through it, and then they show you and they give you the confidence, and then you're practicing it, and then you become good at it, and then you can go out and tackle the hard problems, the hard people who are causing problems for everybody else. Not every cop wants to do that. I mean, we're all paid the same. You sit at a desk, or you go out and you tackle super hard problems, you're getting the same paycheck.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's no advantage to it. None. Because you're just opening up coffers of drama for yourself and complaints. And you have to be, it's gotten so tricky to be a proactive police officer. And there is nothing about the business that encourages you to do that now.
Right.
So the proactive policing has been on a decline for a very long time. And then George Floyd and all that just sent it over the cliff.
So this wasn't the exact environment when you met your future wife, but if you could kind of just go back a bit and just tell me quickly, what were the circumstances by which you fell in love?
So we were well known as a partner team, and well known in the gang units and everything, and we had this great social network in the department, and just such good people and great friends, and everybody started claiming, like, they'd be like, "We know you guys are a thing. You guys are on-duty booty, huh?" And I'd look at him like, "Are you crazy? She won't even let me sit down to eat. Like, we're eating on the hood of the car, Taco Bell. Let's go. There's zero time. I mean, this girl's driving the car, driving the night, and so she was the brains of the car. I was the muscle, I guess. And but we would just start doing everything together. We would start running before work, and she had moved down to the South Bay. We'd just make any excuse to be around each other. So it was working out before work, then working, and then she wanted to learn how to surf. So I taught her how to surf, and now that became, we'd go surfing together. And then one day we were at the Baker to Vegas race, and the big party at the end. And there were some cocktails and stuff, and then the magnets started happening. Right, they started attracting, and there it goes. We were like the last two to figure out we liked each other. It was one of those. Yeah.
It's like musical chairs. Just me and you, kiddo.
Exactly. She was a phenomenal officer, widely known. Top 5% of the department easily, if not more. It's more than that. Super smart, super driven, not trying to be a tough guy or anything like that, just smart. And she played the game really well with the gangsters. Like, she got tremendous respect from them because she did not back down from tough problems. So at some point you have to divulge that you're dating.
Yeah. So
we pull my lieutenant, Art Miller, outside, and we go, "Hey, LT, we got to tell you something." Hey, what's up? I go, "We've started dating." And he looks at me and he goes, "Wow, Tim, you really do like a challenge, don't you?"
There's a lot of stomping and a lot of frisking going on over here. So when do you get married?
Got married in 2003. Had a little girl, Jordan. And so I'm working down in Watts at this point in the gang unit there. She's back up in Southwest Division working like a crime suppression unit. We actually ran a race that morning down at El Segundo, or Dockweiler Beach. It's a race they do every year for fallen officers. And fundraiser. So my gang unit put a team together. She jumped on our team. I've got a picture of us standing there with a couple of the guys in my gang unit. My daughter's 16 months old in my arms. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. We just finished our race. We go home, and we give my daughter Jordan to my mom, and Kristina goes off to Southwest Division. I go off Southeast Division. We're working. Our schedules were crazy, changing all the time. So 10 o'clock that night, this is June 6th, June 3rd, 2006. 10 o'clock that night, I'm in Jordan Downs housing project. That was my responsibility, the Grape Street Crips. And we hear a help call come out up in Southwest Division. And so my partner, Scotty Stevens, and I start racing up there, down Century Boulevard, jump on the 110 freeway. We're in the emergency lane heading towards the Coliseum and get off at Coliseum. And Scotty tells, and we're just responding to a help call.
You don't know the nature of anything.
No, it's an officer down help call.
Yeah.
So that's why we're coming from Southeast to Southwest. So we're racing up there. I've completely forgotten that Kristina's working. So we get on the freeway and Scotty goes, "Hey, Kristina working?" I go, "Oh yeah, she is." And we switched over to the Southwest frequency, and it's on Layton and LaSalle, right in the middle of rolling 30s hood. So I go, "Well, that's her hood. She's probably in this," like not thinking she's one hit. And we're getting off at Coliseum. My phone rings in my pocket, and I look at it, and it's her sergeant, who's a friend of ours, Robin Brown. And I remember turning to Scotty. I go, "Here it goes." I go, "What's up, Sergeant?" He goes, "Hey, Tim, where are you at?" I go, "I'm getting off at Coliseum right now." He goes, "It's Kristina." I go, "Yeah, I know. I figured it out. I'll be right there." Scotty's driving like a wild man, just getting us there. I remember yelling at him. I'm like, "Scotty, calm down. You crash, we don't get there. Like, just cool it. Let's go." We get there, and a bunch of other officers had gotten there ahead of us. To back up, to lead up to that, what she was doing is she's coming down Denker towards Martin Luther King Boulevard. On the corner of Martin Luther King and Denker is, on one side is the police station. On the other side is a little mini mart. This guy goes into the little mini mart, hoodie, bandana, gun, holds everybody up. He's about 50 years old. He holds everybody up, takes their money. The victims run across the intersection to the front desk. Hey, we just got robbed, blah, 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 blah. Male black just took off northbound on Denker. The desk officer's picking up the radio, getting ready to put this out. Well, at that same time, Kristina's coming down Denker, sees a guy who sees her black and white, and he kind of ducks behind a car like he's going to dump something. And it catches her and her partner Joe's attention. They're like, hey, let's grab him. So she's passenger. They pull up. She hops out. Hey, come here. Boom, the guy runs. Guys run all the time because they think we know what they did last week.
Right, right.
Right? Or whatever. They got some rock or some weed in their pocket. And when you're a gang officer, you really don't care about that stuff. You're looking for bigger things. But they don't know that. So he's gone. He's running. She's chasing him. It was actually her third foot pursuit of the night. Earlier, she had caught 2 Rolling 30 gang members in different foot pursuits, and they dumped whatever they had, and someone took it. So she didn't have anything to arrest them on. She caught them, but didn't have an arrest, so she let them go.
Is it your obligation, by the way, to pursue in a moment like that?
No, absolutely not.
And Rolling 30 is a name of a gang.
Yeah,
right?
Rolling 30 Harlem Crips. And so she's chasing him and looking at his hands. The hands are what kill you. No gun in his hands as he's running. He cuts across the lawn, runs up there's a fourplex, 4 steps, big porch, and he tries to get into someone's house. Now these guys will run into anybody's house, and then it gets super complicated, right? And so she catches him at the door, grabs him by the shoulders, going to rip him down to the ground, cuff him, figure out why he's running. If he's got nothing, she's going to let him go. But she technically could use force there, but she doesn't want to get a complaint for using force and not having an arrest. So she's got to weigh her options, right? She's got to know what she has before she even tries to use any force. Even though legally she can, in policy she can, but she's still going to get a complaint. So you have to play that game. So she went light. And that's what gets you killed. So she grabs him by the shoulders, going to rip him to the ground, cuff him, figure out why he's running. He spins and stuffs a pistol up under her armpit, shoots her above the vest. That bullet goes through, breaks through his ribs, breaks that artery, hits her in the T2 vertebrae, and cuts her spinal cord. She drops. Her partner, who's a couple steps behind, stops on the grass as he hears the gunshot and sees her drop. And the guy stands over and shoots her 3 more times, trying to execute her. And since Joe is on the grass shooting at him while he's trying to shoot her, he misses her. He ends up getting her twice in the arm instead of getting her in the head or chest or whatever. Joe's round hits the guy in the shoulder, spins him around. The second round goes through the guy's back, goes through his aorta. He ends up dropping dead next to Kristina. We had, luckily, Kristina was like a CrossFit monster leading up to this, right?
You would run that morning, right?
Yeah. And she 1,000 times better athlete than I ever was. She would push herself so hard. This actually kept her alive. But what else kept her alive is we were lucky. We had a couple SWAT officers working crime suppression in the neighborhood, which is rare. They're always doing SWAT stuff. And they had just been trained as medics. They had just graduated from their medic class, I think 2 days earlier. And boom, they were there right on her and got her bag, doing CPR on her. Joe had his finger up inside the wound, trying to stop the artery bleed up in her armpit. And I get there right when the paramedics get there. They had just went up the steps and put their boxes down, and they're doing their initial assessment. And homeboy, the suspect, is out on the lawn dead, and they'd pulled him out there to make room for her and the paramedics. And I hop over him. There's a big, thick, syrupy, purple arterial blood coming out from under her back, down 4 steps, and out on the walkway, a big puddle on the walkway. I actually slipped in it as I went up the steps. And I remember grabbing the paramedics by the shoulders and pulling them apart and looking at her. And they looked at me, and everybody was like, that's her husband. And I looked at her, and she was sheet white, no blue in her eyes, completely dilated, locked and fixed. Now, at this point, 10 years on as a gang cop, basically, you've seen hundreds of people in various stages of shot dead or dying. I took one look at her and I was like, there's no way she's making this. So we get her on the board, get her in the rescue ambulance, RA, take off for a California hospital. Scotty and I jump in our car. We're breaking traffic for the ambulance. We lose it. We catch up with them at the hospital. And what's crazy is the doctor, the surgeon, was just at the end of his shift and was already walking out he told me later, he was walking out the doors, out to his car, and the doors opened, and he heard the broadcast that an officer was hit. Just barely heard it as he was getting into his car. Turned around, came back in. Next thing you know, we're all in the trauma room. I'm in the trauma room with her, and I'm wedged in this little corner, and the thing on the wall's going, no pulse detected. They had IVs in both sides of her neck, both arms, both arteries, and both femoral arteries. And it was chaos because they were saying, hey, all her veins are shut down. Nothing. She won't take on any blood. And I remember standing there, cutting all her stuff off and giving it. They don't know I'm her husband. And I want to say that that's my wife. But I remember in the academy, they told you, when you get on this job, there are going to be times your opinion does not matter at all. You're given a job to do, and you're to keep your mouth shut and do your job. And I remember standing there going like, I want to tell them that's my wife, but I don't want their attention to be diverted for a millisecond. I just got to stand here and take it.
You don't want them worried about you.
Yeah.
In this moment.
No. So they end up, all of a sudden one vein opens up and boom, there goes 5 bags into her. Boom, boom, boom. You get blood in her, run her over to CT, and then they come out and they tell me, all right, Tim, she's paralyzed and she probably will have use of her arms. And I remember thinking, okay, we got that. And I remember this surfer who's paralyzed, Jesse Billauer. I remember seeing him in a surf movie. I'm like, I got to find that guy, right? She goes to surgery. I remember coming out and there would be like 300 officers in the lobby, and everybody turned and faced me, and it was like dead silent, and I had to update them on what was going on. And it's like the starting gun went off right there with that shooting, and my life has been on a dead sprint ever since. So she comes out of it, paralyzed from nipple line down, in a manual wheelchair. And there was so much love and attention and well-wishing that came our way. It was incredible. Young mom, 16-year-old daughter, shot and paralyzed by a criminal. Big story. And the news was on me every day in and out of the hospital trying to get me to make a statement. We don't talk to the news, right? Mm-hmm. And so I talked to Kristina. I go, hey, just like obligatory, I said, hey, news keeps trying to talk to me. Do you need me to say anything? She goes, yeah. She goes, maybe somebody will see it that can help me walk again. And I'm thinking, I go, Kristina, if I do that, this is going to change everything. We're going to be on Front Street. Every gangster in the country or, in the city is going to know who we are. She goes, I know, but I want to walk again. And I'm sizing it up, and I'm thinking, she's so damn strong. She's so headstrong. She's so physically strong. She's young. If there's anything out there, experimental or whatever, she is the perfect candidate. And we're probably the most prepared, I guess. Our heads are always on a swivel. We're almost always armed. Like, if anybody's got to be in this situation, we're probably 2 good people to be in it. So the department puts together a press release for me, a press conference in the lobby of the hospital. I go down there. I don't even know what I said. There's all these cameras everywhere. I just spoke from the heart. And then we had Chief Bratton at the time, and he apparently had started making connections with Extreme Home Makeover. You got to look at this family. There were a bunch of fundraisers that were held for us. I mean, the help that came our way was unbelievable.
Yeah,
it was incredible. And people would come up and just say the most beautiful things to her, give her hugs and kisses, things that every officer should be able to hear, for the appreciation for what they do, the sacrifice they make. And that went on forever. Still happens to her. Makeover starts talking to us. And they tell us, hey, you're one of 5 families being considered, you know. And I'm like, okay. We were living in a 2-story house. Everything was downstairs, bedrooms upstairs, bathrooms upstairs. So I was hiking her like piggyback style up and down the steps. And I knew we had to create a master bedroom in the garage and then eventually find a house. So they start looking at us, and then we ended up buying a house over in Redondo Beach. Ben Colorasi owned it, and did a handshake deal, and it was like a little 900 square foot house, 1,000 square foot house on a huge lot. Looked like the backyard looked like a haunted pet cemetery. It was just all laid over. Some cat lady had lived there and she had passed away. And yeah,
perfect.
Yeah. So that's what I said. I was like, okay, if they're going to build a house for us, and I told them, I said, hey, do you mind if I find another place? And they're like, look, you're not picked. It's on you if we don't pick you. There's 5 other families. I go, okay, I know I got to rebuild anyways. So I gambled, bought that place.
Wow.
And we moved into it. You had to live in it. And then the show happens. And that show, I thought the ABC had like this magic crew that came around and just built houses for people. They had it all dialed. That's not it at all. They go in and go, who's your best contractor in the South Bay? It turned out to be Cornerstone Construction, Vic and Linda Braden. 2 of the Wonder. So Vic and Linda are not allowed to tell the other construction workers what it's for. They meet up at this church and they bring in all the people they've worked with over the last 30 years. And they say, guys, you got to trust me. This is for a good cause, but we're going to build a house in a week. Just like that. And he has so much respect that they did it. Everybody, and all the materials is donated from all these contractors. They come swoop us up, send us to Cabo because we're surfers. Jordan, my daughter, and we ended up having a week down there. Had a great time, and I thought, okay, this is a Hollywood production.
How far are we from the event at
6
this
months.
point? So 6 months later, you're in a new place, pet cemetery out back. Extreme Home Makeover shows up, and then they send you to Cabo just to get you out of their hair. So you know basically something is, I mean, you know what's up, but you don't know to what extent.
No. And I had this construction background, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, you know what, they're going to slam this thing together. It's going to look great on TV, but it's going to be a disaster. I'll be fixing this thing for 5-10 years, but hey, it'll be better than what we have.
Yeah.
Right? I could not have been more wrong. When we got back and they did the move the bus, and it was like, it felt like 1,000 officers out there. The entire neighborhood, everybody came together for that. I mean, it is exactly what you see on TV.
Yeah.
It's way more, actually. I walked in there. I remember looking around going, holy smokes, this is absolute quality. Soapstone counters, you know, just tight. Everything was just quality. Beautiful, beautiful craftsman home, 3,200 square feet, one level, wide, big, everything. I mean, and it was just amazing. And that became like party central.
They built you a party pad. That's great.
Kristina and I were like on a mission to recreate our life the way we had it before she was hurt, just differently. We were into dirt bike riding, fishing, surfing, anything adventure. We were doing races, triathlons, stuff like that. So we quickly fashioned a surfboard with some handles and a thing to tie her feet together. Got some people, got her out there, swam her out. We're pushing her into waves. You know, she's bodyboarding a surfboard instead of standing up. We rigged up a little one-man, fishing.
Tim, I'm sorry, man. I got to jump in. I'm just trying to imagine being on a surfboard. She doesn't have the use of her legs.
And this is 6 months after the event.
Yeah. That whole
interesting.
Very, very interesting.
Very interesting.
We would. I'd put somebody at shore and somebody kind of halfway, and then I'd have my fins on. I'd hold on to the front of the board and swim out backwards, pull her out, line up the waves, and time it, shove her in as fast as I could, and then every once in a while she'd catch one and she'd ride it, and she had the biggest smile on her face when she'd ride it. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work to get that smile.
Yeah.
But everybody was down to help her in any possible way. We modified a little one-man fishing pontoon, put an electric motor on backwards and a bucket seat so that she could fish on the lake by herself. We got her a dune buggy with hand controls, so she could, because we were all dirt bike riders, and we could, and so she could do that with us. Of course, she flipped it a couple times.
Sure.
She went end over end on one and flipped sideways, and I ran over and we all grabbed it and flipped it over, and I go, "You okay?" She goes, "I can't feel anything anyways." Yeah,
geez.
she's incredible, man. She's toughest woman I've ever known by far. Oh, we had a little boy 2 years after she was paralyzed.
What?
Yeah. So he's now 2 at this point.
I can't think of a single appropriate question to ask.
Right. Yeah. They'll take your mind.
I don't want to pry. And yet, when we're
Super
done,
curious.
I'm going to ask you some questions. But, okay, congratulations. So, what's his name?
Lucas. He's now 6 feet tall, 210 pounds, water polo stud.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, he's
The
amazing.
stories. Okay, look. In the interest of time, knowing that we could talk for 6 hours but can't, take me to the moment where you say, enough of whatever it is we're doing. You just described it. You went on a sprint beginning with that gunshot.
Yeah.
So when did you slow down, or did you just change course? What happened to get you on this entrepreneurial path to create the device that poor Chuck has now been wearing for the last hour and 5 minutes?
She, that year after that race, I kind of stopped all the events and said, "Look, it's time to stay home. Movie nights, Friday nights, whatever. I'm tired of giving the kids to my mom." And she started going downhill because I took all these distractions away. At the 5-year point, kids were 3 and 6, and she checks into Betty Ford for alcohol and pain meds.
Mm-hmm.
I think, okay, 90 days, or 90 days, our life's just going to take another turn. No big deal. That turns into a 2-year thing not to come home. She learns a year into it that she's got a brain injury due to blood loss, undiagnosed. And she gets diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And when she checked into Betty Ford, she went, all that emotion, everything had been chasing her, just ran her over. And she became like a very different person. Suicidal, self-injury, really, really scary stuff. And that took us down this 2-year path of all these facilities, several states. I'm taking care of the kids. And that led to, 2 years into these facilities, it led to us getting divorced. So that ended up being a really, really hard time. And then I started looking like a crackhead at work. I couldn't breathe. I started twitching. My friends were really worried about me. I couldn't focus. And I had 10,000 cops that knew who I was.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like I had to be this good soldier 24/7. And so finally Karina Lee, my union president, came and she's like, "You ever thought about retiring?" And I was like, "No, but I need some time off." And she goes, "Let me just walk you through the process." And they took good care of us. Took really good care of us. They retired Kristina full pension. They retired me with a pension. They gave me a paycheck. And when I was home taking care of the kids, I had this idea. Before Kristina went away, we were using TENS units on her legs to fight off muscle atrophy.
TENS units?
Yeah, so electrical muscle stimulation. So when you go to a chiropractor and they put the sticky electrodes on you,
Sure.
and it contracts your muscles, right? A little electrical current contracts your muscles. So she did that in a ton of her physical therapy, and someone gave her 1 unit to come take home. And so before I put it on her, I put it on me, on my bicep, and I was playing with the dials. I didn't read the instructions, but I'm playing with the dials, right? And all of a sudden it kicks on like full blast, and it completely locked my bicep down and then let me go. And I remembered back to the academy, our SWAT guys going, you guys have got to train with your offhand. You might be in a pursuit, car crash at the end of the pursuit, crush your gun hand, and the gunfight's on. You've got to know how to manipulate that weapon with one hand, do everything with it, right? And I remember him saying, we'll handcuff our hand behind our back. LAPD SWAT. And I thought, I don't know anything. Construction worker in the academy looking at the SWAT guy going, that's archaic.
That's state of the art?
Yeah.
We're going to handcuff your, okay.
I had figured LAPD would have something more sophisticated than that, but what do I know? So fast forward, now we're at like 12 years. I've on the job. I light myself up with this TENS unit. I call Jen Grasso, who's our first female LAPD SWAT member, who's a friend of mine. I call her. I go, hey, Jen, how do you guys simulate that you've been hit? She goes, oh, we got this ball we tape in our hand, or we got a glove we tape shut. I'm thinking nothing's changed since '96, and nothing existed before that. So if I could make this remote control, then I could wire an officer up, send him into a scenario. When he gets shot at, now I can hit him. I can completely incapacitate his limb. And now he's forced under duress to solve the problem and finish the fight and survive.
So he's not controlling it.
No.
You're controlling it.
With a remote. So he doesn't know when it's coming, where it's coming, if it's coming. But I tell you what, you put it on, I bet you've been thinking about it. Like, and
Maybe a little bit.
yeah. And what's crazy is it's only 66 volts. It's the exact same thing as what you buy on a TENS unit over Amazon.
Mm-hmm. And again, just to understand its application, it's not taking place in a vacuum. You've got guys in a real world simulation. There's all sorts of stuff going on around them, and this is just one added way to take the what you call the verisimilitude up a notch.
There's a big gap in police training, right? We train officers in weapons manipulation, tactics, communication, everything leading up to the shooting. Mm-hmm. And then we teach them TAC med, put a tourniquet on. Okay, if you're putting a tourniquet on, you've been shot. So where was the gunfight that you had to have won while you're shot? There is no training in that. Mm-hmm. The day, from the chief down to the guy on the street, there's nothing but hope and a prayer and a fantasy for that moment. Because how do you train it?
So this, with just 66 volts, will simulate the impact of a bullet.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see it in action.
So, you're wearing number 6.
Number 6.
Number 6.
So, like, we could have 6 of us going in on a search warrant, right? Nobody knows, 1 through 6. So what I'm doing is I'm dialing over to his number. I could dial to whatever number guy I want to select, right?
Uh-huh.
And I run the intensity up. I'm going to put him at a 3. 4 is the highest. And you're looking, so you're the instructor, so you're looking at his back because he's going in a building, walking up to a car. You're standing in the background going, I'm going to get him when the shooting starts.
Yeah.
So shooting starts and you're looking at, say, that's his right arm. Oh, right.
Yeah, that is my right arm.
Can you do anything with that arm?
Not really.
Could you grab a gun?
Not with this hand, no.
No. Could you? Yeah. So that's gone, right?
Yeah.
As long as I hold that button down, he's locked up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's a lot better.
There you go. Now, is it analogous to a collar on a dog?
So that's static shock.
Ah.
Yeah. It's not contracting any of their muscles. It's just biting them.
Right.
Right. And it's like, ouch, ouch. That's distracting, right? That's all it's doing. This is taking the limb out. Now, if I hit him in the inner forearm, do you want that?
I don't know.
I do. Yeah.
So inner forearm, put your arm up. Ah! I call that gang signs.
That hurts. Yeah. That was not good. The bicep wasn't as bad, but that's a ooh.
Well, that's a denser muscle, right?
Yeah.
Like your forearm and your calf are about as dense as.
And then hit that bottom button.
The bottom button here.
Yeah, yeah. And hold it.
Is this the one we've got on his scrotum? Is it?
Yes.
What?
This is the G string.
You just relax. This will just take a second.
Hold your arm up. I call that one Spider-Man.
Oh man!
Because what it's doing is contracting his outer muscles and opening his hand like that.
Yeah.
Now you want to have fun.
Spider-Man.
Do these two at the same time. And, yeah. Chicken wing. That's the chicken wing.
Wow. Okay.
Now,
thank you, but look, this is very. I've been a lab rat most of my life.
Yeah.
You know, my company's called Lab Rat Productions.
Yeah.
It's good to see him enduring it.
so
So wait. You can put it on either arm, obviously, legs.
yeah, legs in the future, abs in the future.
Yeah.
I had to get it
Oof.
started. Yeah, abs suck.
Oh,
yeah.
But I could bend you over like this.
I'll bet.
So imagine trying to shoot offhand with your support hand while you're bent over and you're trying to move to cover and return rounds. But that's what it's going to be like.
Sorry.
Are you?
It was an honest mistake.
Are you sorry?
I had a weird twitch in my thumb that just happened to be over the red button. Hey, how are the bookings coming for November?
Really good. Super good.
Scale of 1 to 10. 2. You hesitated.
Oh, man.
Tell me about the business. And I don't want to ask you anything you don't want to divulge, but how does it work as an entrepreneur? How is this? Are you going to be like really rich?
I could use a break.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe it's time for a break for Tim.
Oh my God, you have no idea. So it's just introducing it to academies, to agencies. We ended up getting the U.S. Marshals picked it up. They have a 5-day reality-based training that they're doing all over the country, and they're going to be running this. Swiss SWAT team and Netherlands anti-terrorism team. We just started selling it.
What, the Netherlands?
Yeah. I was introduced to them, and they loved it. And they brought in 20 anti-terrorism teams for a 3-day training over there in hour outside of Amsterdam. And then they come away with that, looking at the best practices of each team, and they put this in as a reality-based piece to their training.
It's easy to see greatness in an idea, and it's easy to see majesty in a story. And dude, your story, I mean, it's almost a trope to talk about triumph from tragedy, and I'm sure you've heard about it and thought about it. And obviously, you're not at the end of the journey, but since you've shared so much, what is the state of things today with you and Kristina? Are you?
So there was a long period where I had to kind of keep distance because I didn't want to get triangulated with the kids. So we've everything's subsurface. Kids, I've always talked about her as she's a hero. None of this is her fault. I still love her. We're good friends now.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period where I couldn't be around her because we were in a horrible divorce. When my son got old enough and big enough, and I didn't have to be concerned about him anymore. Didn't need the monitor. I went over at one of his water polo tournaments, and I just sat down next to her and started talking to her like nothing ever happened. And we've never spoken a word about what's behind us. And now we co-parent with the kids. We have dinners together. She cracks me up still. We do, birthday dinners and things like that. This is the best I've ever seen her now that she's helping other people. She will always have problems, right? She has a brain injury in her frontal cortex and her amygdala. And she has this swirling issue with the personality disorder. And she has massive health problems. Always. But she is the toughest woman on earth, and she still has a great sense of humor, and she's doing a great job with the kids.
Look, I would never expect or ask anybody to share as much as what you've shared. I thank you. I mean, it's so personal. It's so gut-wrenching, but it is a part of this story. And as we close, I just want to go back to something you said 2 minutes ago. After all that acrimony, all that separation, all those hard feelings, you sat down next to your ex-wife and just chatted her up like nothing had ever happened.
It's the only way.
I'm just leaving the listeners with that as a public service for men everywhere.
Yeah.
Who whatever it is they're dealing with, the fact that might be an option is, in a word, interesting.
If you want to see something else interesting, go to aufire.com and take a look at some of the videos that are on there because it's pretty impressive.
And if you want to see something even more interesting, direct your attention toward Chuck right now.
The chicken wing?
As we say goodbye, I'm going to go with the chicken wing here with just a little bit of the, there, the
Gang
forearm
signs.
there. Yes, yes. And what happens if you hit them all at once?
Oh, that probably the chicken wing. Override everything.
Charlie, are you wearing a diaper? Strap in, brother. Hey, thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing so much. And congratulations. You're going to save a bunch of lives, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it.
I certainly appreciate it.
Tim Pearce, everyone.
If you like what you heard,
And even if you don't,
won't you please,
pretty please subscribe. Well, I hate to beg and I hate to plead, but please, pretty freaking please, please subscribe.